bowels of One Half Radio Plaza at Life Media Studios.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to Real Country Radio.
Congratulations, Detroit. You can be thoroughly ashamed of yourself. The homicide toll has reached a nice even 750. Details on the latest leveling from Police Sergeant.
Coming up now, we're going to start off the set with...
In the morning.
Bucket-Bloods Tigers could use this guy's talent.
Have you had time to get ready?
I don't waste any time getting ready. I stay ready.
Good evening and welcome to probably the shakiest sidetrack you've ever seen. We got this thing held together with duct tape, zip ties, chicken wire, and WD-40. But tonight we're joined by Top Fuel Terry Totten and a couple of his crew guys. How's everybody doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time. How you doing? Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Oh boy,
it's way worse than it was.
Gonna be one of those. You see what you guys may.
I'll move my mic closer and see why. If Charles,
well, that's real good.
You can hear me.
That's
all right?
better. Yes.
So I'll move it real close. Just don't mind the mic sticking in front of the screen there.
Yeah,
it's all good.
So, welcome guys to the show. Kind of fun to have you guys on tonight. If you guys, pretty informal, kind of talk about a little bit about your history, your background, where you started, where you're going, and talk about obviously what it's like, Terry, for you having a small crew. You know, I mean, you're not the guy that we had the conversation out there that you're not the guy that's got 14 people in the pit with you. So what's that like compared to some of the other teams? You don't get to sit back and eat caviar, obviously. So, kind of introduce yourself and give us a rundown of the history of where you started and how long you've been doing it and so forth.
Well, I'm Terry Totten, and I've been doing it for about probably close to 20 years. Started out just as a crew guy for a guy I bought a car from by the name of Don Sasenka, and just started crewing with him. I paid my own way, just kind of showed up and basically bugged him constantly till he started talking to me more and teaching me, and then I started running an alcohol car. Found out that that's not going to work because it doesn't, there's no payback. It's just all expense. So went back and turned it back into a fuel car. And I had Rob Passy drive my fuel car a couple times before I got licensed. I actually went out racing several years without, with just having somebody else driving the car since I didn't have a license at the time. So that's kind of how I got started. I went to one race to look at a car, and that was it. I was hooked.
And that's when the best habit you ever had, glad you ever had, happened at that point.
Yeah. We, Don, he only had his son, a couple other guys from time to time, and his wife. And watching him do it, taking his time, not rushing and stuff, I thought, man, this looks easy. Oh boy.
Who signed your license when you got it?
My license, I believe Scott Palmer signed it, Jeff Deal signed it, Terry Haddock signed it, and because I had it was at two different places, so one person couldn't sign the whole thing. I'm trying to think of who the last one was.
It better be another independent because you're naming good names.
Actually, I think Palmer signed it twice because I think he was there at both. It was either him or Terry Haddock signed it twice because they were there for both sessions that I actually got to get in the car. Actually, I take that back. the last 2 runs I made were in Terry Haddock's car. My car, it wasn't running real consistent, and kind of like Dave Lowe will tell you, if you're not comfortable with the people that are outside of the car, it's not a good feeling when you're in the car.
No, it's not.
So Terry had a good running 4-flat car that could get me my license, and he needed an apartment plumbed, an upstairs loft in his shop with just bathroom, kitchen, and so I traded him partially out for doing that work to go down there, and I helped him the weekend that we stayed that following Monday at Dallas, and I made my last 2 passes. And that was Jeff Deal. That race was Jeff Deal and Haddock signed it at that time, because Jeff was he was just kind of hanging out there on that Monday.
I'd say you got the better half of that deal.
What's that?
You got the better part of that deal.
Yeah. Well, no, I had to pay cash too.
It's still not a bad deal by any chance.
No, it's not. I mean, he worked with me. And the car ran well that whole weekend. I was doing the clutch on it. Actually, I was doing the clutch on his car that weekend, and I learned a lot from French. Scott French was there doing it with me. So actually that weekend fixed a lot of my problems too. Once I got back and got into my clutch can, I figured out a couple things the way they were doing things. There's a lot of ways to run one of these cars, but not all of them are right.
Yeah, I'd never been around to see some of that, to understand how everything fits together. And your crew was pretty inviting to kind of show me around, show me what's going on, and you was taking me in and showing me basically the inner workings of all that, because you can always see a lot of stuff outside, and zoom lenses help for something like that, but to understand every bit and piece of you get done with the pass and what goes into we're getting ready for the next pass was pretty fun to watch up close.
Yeah, it's kind of an adrenaline rush. Yeah, there it is.
Yep.
That's the nicest clutch I've ever had right there.
And you have a whole stack of new clutches waiting to get another pass.
Actually, those are used. New ones are easy to come by. Used ones that are good after being cut are hard to come by. You have to make a certain thickness of clutch pack. You can't put all new ones in. It's way too aggressive. So what we do is we cut old ones down so they start out at about 380 thousandths thick, and then each time we make a run, we resurface them, and they get smaller, obviously. So, we like to wear them out, start at, a 380, and then maybe it turns into a 350, and then a 320, and then a 300, and they go back in that pack, and we just kind of cycle them down. I only run 2 new discs in each pack. Some of the guys running the 470s or the 370s are running 3 or more new discs in their clutch packs, but I don't have the fine tune on the levers and stuff to be able to be that aggressive with it. Something like that would just smoke the tires on my car. But it took a long time to get to where we are with that clutch. That thing's been evolving for years.
How long have you had this chassis?
Just 1 year.
Okay.
That chassis came from Kevin Kinsley was driving it. Roger Hennon, the Gas Monkey Garage car. That was the Gas Monkey Garage car.
Okay.
I can't think of that guy's name. Richard Rawlings was a sponsor on that. And then he was sponsoring it with Roger Hennon, who was so Roger Hennon actually owned the car Richard Rawlings was helping fund it to be raced, and then Kevin Kinsley was driving it for a few years. They actually runnered up in that car in Indy. It's a fast car.
And you're next week, not this weekend, next weekend's Chicago. So are you all back together for that and got everything ready to go for Chicago yet?
Yep. We gotta just put the supercharger on and stick it in the trailer, strap everything down.
That's a good
I got to
feeling.
build a couple clutch, or not. I got a bunch of clutch packs built. I got to build a couple racks, pistons, and rods. But other than that, we're pretty much ready to go. And then we were looking at going to Norwalk. I was going to go park. I was going to leave Chicago, drive to Norwalk, or drive to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and then catch a flight home, park it at Dave Nelson, one of the sponsors' trucking places. But they got hit with a tornado 3 days ago. Yeah. So
2 days
that's no
ago?
longer
3 days.
an option
3
because
days.
he's pretty busy.
Yeah, you're getting up in a Charles neck of the woods up there.
It was wild up here 2 nights ago.
Yeah, that must have been what it was. Dave, was that when I told you he
Yeah,
got
it was
hit?
2 nights ago. Yeah, it was 2 nights ago. Because that was the same day. I think the tornado hit about 10 miles down the road here. Tuesday night. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys were real close to that one down there too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dave Nelson's wife owns, she's the CEO of the KFG. It's a flower group. They actually have a nursery. So they had three or four nurseries that were all damaged, and all the plants were damaged. And they sell those to like the Lowe's and Walmarts and Home Depots and stuff. That's what's out in the parking lots. So they're going to try to outsource now because all the petunias are gone.
Yeah.
Some of Dave's trucks got laid over on their side, so he's going to be dealing with insurance companies and stuff like that. So I told him I would, instead of driving up there, I'll just come back home and then we'll decide whether we're going to drive to Norwalk or not.
I know I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but I'm a ag underwriter for Farm Bureau Insurance up here in Michigan, and I got the report a little before the show on what damages we suffered as a company from the tornadoes. I just didn't have a chance to read it yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, he said he was actually up north, farther north. He wasn't even actually there when it happened, but he said he just can't believe nobody was hurt.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So Terry, obviously we've got Dave on here, which I met in Vegas, and I understand Dave told me that Brian's also going to be on your crew now too. So Dave, you want to introduce you and Brian?
Well, I'm Dave, and this is now Brian. Yeah.
How did you guys get to meet Terry and end up, working together with Terry on his car and stuff?
I've known Terry a long time. I don't know. We just we hit it off, and he called. I'll never forget. He called and he goes, "Hey, you interested in going to a race?" I go, "Well, yeah, sure." He says, "Can you be gone for like 2 or 3 weeks?" And I go, "Well, yeah." He said, "Really?" I go, "Yeah, I can do that, no problem." He said, "Okay, well, we're going to go to Florida, and we're going to go down and test, and then we're going to run the Gator." I said, "Sounds good." So I ended up, a friend of mine owns Pete and Jake's Hot Rod Shop in Kansas City, actually Peculiar, Missouri, and I parked my truck there, loaded up with him, and it's like the Beverly Hillbillies on the road. We took off, and it was that was really a fun trip. And there's a joke kind of between me and Terry, coffee and Slim Jims, and I'll get you there. And I don't know. I really, honestly, and don't let this go to your head, Terry, but I really enjoy working around Terry. I find a lot of me in Terry, how we think. I don't even have to. I can look at him and know that okay, right side, left side. I just we're kind of wired the same way. And man, that really works nice. And like Terry said a little bit ago, driving one of these things, which sitting, I'm staring at it right now, and it's such an intimidated car. It's my front motor fuel car, and you count on your crew so much, and it's nice to see the same faces because when you're in that car, you're strapped in. And I go, and I'm sure Terry does. You're going through your head. Did they turn the air bottle on? Did they reset the can? This, and there's no way to communicate. So you just hope, man, everybody was on their game plan. I'm sure Terry, you'll agree. It's sometimes when you have a new person in there, it's like, oh, it's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, I've honestly, God, I hate this. I've done this my entire life. On the way out here, I was just figuring up the years I've spent with race cars, and I know I look only 25 years old, guys. I know that, but still, I'm just joking. I'm looking pretty old. This will be my 48th year of doing this stuff.
What all
and
do
do I have any intentions on quitting? No, I love it. I hope I'm like the Greek. I hope I'm like Gartlett's. I hope I can do this.
And what all do you have for cars?
This guy, he's young. Do what?
What all do you have for cars in the shop there?
Right now, I'm looking. Terry knows the shop. I'm looking up on the mezzanine. That was my top alcohol car. It's setting up there, and then right there is my front motor car, and then behind me is my rear motor car, and then believe it or not, I've got a dirt car in here too. It's not mine. It's my nephew's.
You got a funny car up in my
I help
shop.
him with the motor. Do what?
He's got a funny car up in my shop.
There's a funny car at Terry's shop. Well, I mean, we've talked about doing something with it. Me and Terry doing a chaos car. We've talked about selling it and splitting the money and taking it and putting it on our fuel cars. Right now, I don't know. I'm kind of leaving that. I guess baseball in Terry's hand right now. See what he thinks. Terry has been a big mentor for me. And it's nice because there's certain teams, like he mentioned, Rob Passy and them, those kind of teams never play you down, never dog you. Rob would get on Facebook at night and encourage me, Dave, how's the car going on? And I'd be like, man, I don't know. I hope I'm doing the right thing. And before the conversation was over, it's like, man, I'm all pumped up and can't hardly wait to go to the shop tomorrow morning. Maybe I'll go tonight and work on some more. And Terry's been that guy. Terry, I'll tell you, there's been a few times I've called him and I've been really down in the dumps. It's like, man, I don't know. But I don't know. I guess he just wants me to be in his shoes too. That we're in this game together, I guess. But no, I really enjoy it. And I really enjoy Terry's team. Terry's team has brought a lot to my life. You don't know me, which I've had a mentally disaster life in the last probably 10 years, and Terry has helped me so much with that. Just everyday conversations, and don't even sometimes talk about race cars. He's really helped me a lot. His whole family, and I love his family. His family is top notch.
That's pretty awesome.
It's how it goes in this community. I think the three of us who do this show, and then there's a fourth guy who's not here with us tonight because of a family issue. We talk every single day, and probably maybe only a third of that conversation is about anything to do with racing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I get it. It's no big secret. I fight depression. I lost both my mom and dad, and and now I'm divorced, and I got my friends, and that's it. And friends are your family, and Terry's my family, man. No matter if we quit racing tomorrow, that friendship and that bond we have will never end. I'll still go to Gretna and go see them and hang out. And if we're not racing, we might be boating, or I don't play golf, so that's out of the question.
Not
You wouldn't
fast
want to see
paced
me.
enough.
Hey, I can't even play miniature golf. I can't play sports. Let's put it that way. Roller skating's about the extreme for me right there.
What about playing mini golf on roller skates with a hockey stick?
No, if I told you what kind of skating I used to be in, you'd be like, no way. I was a figure and freestyle skater.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
But I was also about 80, 90 pounds skinnier.
Yeah.
Kind of Happy Gilmore style.
There you go.
Yeah. That's kind of funny. Brian here, Brian's actually related to me. And Brian's been with my team, 20 years? 20 years, yeah. Yeah. 20 years he's been, I keep coaxing him back in. Come on, one more year, Brian. Kind of like that big old fish on you, you're reeling it in, you know?
Yep.
I'll never leave.
Yeah. And that's what I told Terry. I'm very loyal. I don't care. Somebody could offer me the world if I go with them racing. And no, I go with Terry Totten. And that's the way it'll be. I'm not going nowhere. Not going nowhere, Terry.
You always, NHRA guys always, say it's like a big family. And I don't see that outside of my pit so much, but maybe I'm not their family, I get a lot of help from some guys on some of the bigger teams as far as bouncing things off of them, trying to keep up. It seems like every time I make what I think is a big move, I'm just keeping up. I'm not really gaining on them because every time I step up, they've stepped up too. And I'm just kind of back where I was before I made my move. The biggest step that helped me this year was Alf Construction at the end of last year helped me get some parts that made a huge difference in how this car can perform. I don't know. You see, last year in St. Louis, I had a kaboomer when my car over revved and it sneezed the supercharger, and there's a pretty good plume of fire back there. But at that point, it was like, I can't keep running, investing in those same superchargers. They're not the latest and greatest, and I'm not able to keep up because I can't make that horsepower down track. So I, with a little bit of help, I got a pair of what everybody else is running, trying to keep up with the Joneses. And in the first 3 outings this year, it has proven to be the right choice. That money was spent in the right spot, and that and clutch. So, and we're just now starting to get it all figured out. We got some more changes that need to be made. Chicago is going to have probably 21 or 22 top fuel cars. I was talking with Dom Lagana at 142 Speed Shop today, actually, and he's a guy that can predict what's going on in the world of drag racing. I know when we went and Joey Haas was driving my car in Denver, we won our first round, and he called me up. Actually, he called his brother, Bobby Lagana, up and said, he had looked at the ladder and he said, you guys might race Terry in the final. And he was right. That he looked at both ladders. He knew, but anyway, long story short, talking to him this morning, he said, Chicago this week or next weekend could be the fastest field in NHRA history in Top Fuel. Because there's no slackers going to be there. There's going to be 21 very fast cars. And we'll see how close Dom is. He predicts the bump could be as low as a 375, a 376.
Wow.
And I think
we're one of the fastest. We're one of the fast cars too, Terry. Just remember that. We're going to be. We're doing.
I haven't gone 370 anything yet. Everybody, the top 16 cars there are all running 370. So, depending on the weather will probably make the biggest determination as to just how fast that will be. But I believe that to be faster than the fastest field in Indy for the big go. I mean, I think that was a 379 was the bump or something like that. So it's it'd be nice to be there with them. Dom, he's so methodical in the way he thinks. He watches my runs and he looks at the incrementals and he hammers me on everything from where you staging, how deep you staging, are you shallow staging, how far are you from the first bulb, because all of that makes a difference. I mean, he says you can knock 3/10 off if you stage differently. And I didn't know that. But, I think he still has the fastest pass in Top Fuel history at Martin, Michigan. And that's been a record that's been there for a long time. I think he went 338?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah,
So that's something people don't necessarily understand, is that there is a distance between the stage bulb and the actual timing light. And I want to say center to center, it's like 10.5 inches, but you have rollout on the tires where you can play in or out several inches. And as quick as these cars are, it makes a difference in qualifying.
It does. And, he and I were talking about the run in Vegas, and he said, well, you lifted early. And I thought, no, I don't think I did. I said, one of the guys told me I drove it out the back door. Well, we were talking about two different runs, but sure enough, if you look at it, I mean, I lifted like maybe 0.05 of a second early, and he knew it because the computer didn't because when these go 1-to-1, when the motor goes 1-to-1, the clutch locks up. If you step off the throttle, it's like hitting the brakes. I mean, you go like that. It doesn't freewheel. As soon as the motor comes down, it drags the wheels down with it. And he said, that 385 could have been a 383, and if you would have staged differently, that could have been your first 380 flat. So he explained to me that rollout that you're talking about, you can go all the way in and deep stage it, not to where you put the bulb out like John Force likes to do, but if you go in deeper, your reaction time on paper looks good, but you actually sacrificed ET to do it. If you go in and you just flicker the second bulb, then you get a running start because the timer doesn't start until your tires have passed or broke the forward light.
Yeah.
So you get a running start at it. So your 60 foot is better. Well, your 60 foot is free ET, where reaction time is only on paper. And you can change, this is what I just learned last week. You can change your actual run by 3 or 4/10 of a second in where you stop the car when you stage it. So I got a lesson last week on how I'm going to stage the car to knock another 2 or 3/10 off without doing anything different. Just staging differently, not trying to shallow stage, but staging in a different spot, basically a different way. The other thing, I don't know if anybody saw, well, I'm sure he did. I had a horrible reaction time, but I guess I missed the memo that they were going to a random drop on the tree, which used to be, it was always a 0.4 of a second between staged and green.
Is that only because the four wides?
No, it's a new change period. They're all going to be. There was a different time change because of the four wides. They had a different, like I believe it could be anywhere between 0.4 up to like 1.3.
Wow.
Now they tighten that up when it's not the four wides. I think they did that for the four wides just because it was the four wides and it takes a little bit to get everybody in there. But now I believe it's going to be anywhere between like a 0.4 and 1 second, or 0.4 and 0.9 that it can drop at any time. And I noticed at the four wides how everybody's reaction times changed. There were a good reaction time, except for Justin Ashley, who had a 28 light. Nobody else had a 28 light, but he did.
Good job of guessing.
What's that?
Good job of guessing.
Yeah, the kid always cuts a good light. I don't know how he does.
He does. He does.
But even Doug Clitta, who's a good lever, I mean, he's a 60s lever all the time, was a 92. So it makes a difference because you can't anticipate the tree any longer. You can't take that guess anymore. You have to leave when you see amber. You can't guess it, or you're going to be wrong with that kind of a margin. So I'm hoping to run a 380 flat. That would make, if I run a 380 flat in Chicago at 320, it might not get us in the show, but it'll keep us in the money that'll cover expenses anyway, and we can do it without hurting anything.
Yeah, it's one thing, Terry. We don't hurt stuff.
Yeah, very rarely do we really, hang rods out of a motor or bang superchargers or, But that's because,
I don't think I've ever used a full tray of bearings in the last couple of years. Uppers. Really? No, not at all.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well, that's
Terry will say, hey, let's change that bearing. I said, what do you want me to do with it? Well, just throw it away. I said, Ron, put it in the suitcase. We're taking it home.
Yeah, and I changed all the bearings in the motor now since we had time to do it, and they were sitting there in a tray, and I picked them up and I wiped them off and I looked at them and I've stuck them in your bottom end tray. So you got 3 more good used bearings there that I should have probably not even bothered to take out, but I did.
Well, and that's one thing that, when you and I had a conversation, you said it doesn't matter from any sponsorship, you're going to keep doing the same stuff and bettering the car. There's points of where you're going to make investments because it's going to better the car, and you're not going to just frivolous spend money on whatever. It's going to be keep doing the same stuff you've been doing to get better. And that kind of stuck with me. Yeah.
Well, if you don't have the big budget, you have to. And if you have the big budget, I don't know why the big teams do that. I want to wear parts out, not just replace them because we broke them. Everything has a cycle life in these cars. Every item in there does. And you go to different speeds, your cycle times, your cycle life of parts changes. And you have to stay on top of it. You don't stay on top of it, you'll lose a motor. So, Dom was talking, we were talking this morning, and he said, yeah, you just stick to your plan. Go out, make one on Friday, make one qualified session on Saturday, and just keep picking away at it. Because, I go out there and throw everything at it and try to run a 378, and then the bump's a 377. And I've got nothing but broken parts now. That you're not ahead then. When Alan Hartley was racing Top Fuel, he had a year that he wanted to be in the top 10 and make a run for the countdown or whatever. But Alan Johnson was pitted across from him, was tuning for somebody. In every qualifying session, that short block had to come out because it had rods hanging out. And Al Hartley, who had a lot of money of his own, said, "This is stupid. I mean, this is dumb. Why would you continually do that?" And he missed it. I think it was like 10 points. He missed it. He started the year with 5 motors, and at the end of the year, I don't think he had one left. 5 motors, 3 superchargers, and 3 clutches. And at the end of the year, it was pretty much all gone. And that's, not including all the rods and pistons and crankshafts that were cycled through them. So, you watch these guys come out and they make a run, qualifying run. They set all the knobs and turn everything, push all the buttons, and they go out and they run, a number that I can't run, as an example. But then they pull the motor out and they have to put another motor in, and then they go try to do it again, and then they do it again. And the whole weekend, they've never made a second run. Everything is the first run because everything is brand new in the car. It's a different block. It's different supercharger. It's different cylinder heads. We're running the same cylinder heads we have all year. I mean, if we have some valves that are leaking a little bit, we fix them. Then we don't just go to a different set of heads and then take them back to the shop and do all that. I mean, I keep the better stuff in the trailer. I mean, the lower run heads, the lower run supercharger, the brand new injector. We keep that in the trailer so we can pull it out when we need it, not just because we don't want to fix what we got. We'll take the time to do it.
Yeah. Sacrifice that run if you have to in qualifying, and the head goes out of service if you literally torched it.
Yeah. If it's repairable, we're not going to just I'm always, if it has one problem, then just fix the one problem and keep running it. Now, come race day, if we go around and there's something questionable, then the new heads come out. The new rack goes in. We're not going to mess with it because we want to be able to stand on it without having it be a domino effect, and then this takes out that, and then that takes out that, and then your one rod goes and it takes out its neighbor, and then next thing you know, you got nothing left.
Round 2 on Sunday pays a little better than Q2 on Friday night.
Actually, the best paying position is the first 16 cars on qualifying. That's the money actually on Sunday until you get into the final round. It's only like $4,000 a round. You get 10,000 to qualify, but if you go around, you only get 4. And then you get then it starts to grow from there. But actually, because anymore, I mean, putting the math to it, it's $3,000 to step on the throttle if you don't hurt anything. So when people are like, "Hey man, how much is it to rent your car?" Well, for a weekend, if you want to, how many passes do you want to do? Nitromethane, 44 gallons. What do we get, Dave? We warm up, we make a pass, we come back, and we might get one more warm up, and then top it off,
and we gotta get another drum.
That's it.
Yep.
Two passes, and that's $1,500.
If I remember right, in Vegas, we had 3 drums altogether, and the third drum had some left in it they took for us for the next race. Wasn't that right?
Yeah, and then you got spark plugs at $4 a pop, and then clutch discs now have top $200 a disc. So 2 new ones in each pack. That's another $400, and then every floater is about $70 a piece. Your nitromethane, and then your wear and tear on the rest of the stuff. I mean, it's just getting to the point where even going out and qualifying, but NHRA hasn't moved the money up. They haven't changed what you get for qualifying. And since I have been doing this for 20 years, 1 through 16 qualifiers all get the same money. The only thing NHRA did was when they didn't have enough cars actually even showing up, they started paying 17, 18, 19, and 20 a little bit to get people like me to continue to come out and at least attempt to get into the field. That's why I've spent a lot of time picking and choosing what races I go to based off of car count, and not only car count, but what cars are going there,
Or, Terry, something that people don't realize either is the motel expenses, the food expenses, and the airfares, all that. It just, sometimes it's overwhelming.
Yeah. The cost of everything's gone up 25%, and then the first round loser money is the same as it was 20 years ago. So that's why this PRO, Pro Racers Organization, has been trying to do something for, the upper crust, I guess you'd call it, of NHRA drag racing, where the top 10 get to go. But,
Well, and that's something that amazes me is, your whole crew is not local to you by any means.
No.
I mean, you've got guys in Illinois and Kansas, and one of the guys was from Honduras, came up from there. Like you've got a whole team of guys that are coming from all over, and it was honestly really fascinating to watch everybody work, because they all have their job. They all know what, like Dave was saying, is they all know exactly what the other one's doing, and they're kind of wired to do that. And when you have a small team like that, it's really fun to watch. I could sat in a chair and not held a camera and just watched everything, because it was entertaining to see how everybody they know their job, they know how it works together, and you guys have fun doing it,
Yeah.
I mean,
I've told a lot of people too. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're working on a boat, a tractor, an airplane. A mechanic is a mechanic. If he knows the fundamentals and fundamentally how nuts and bolts and fasteners work, they can work on anything. It doesn't matter what you put them on. I mean, whether it's a combine, a tractor, a boat, or a race car, there's certain things that mechanics just know,
Yeah, and you got Hank, who's an old John Deere mechanic, and when he says, well, I was a John Deere mechanic in Illinois, and he said, when I started, I was pre-delivering 4020s. And now he's working on it, now he's working on a top fuel card that honest to God, I was not expecting to see an X4020 pre-delivering mechanic working on a top fuel car when I walked into the pits, but it was pretty cool. And it's humbling to see all that come together.
He's a phenomenal mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything he does, and Dave is too, and machinists, I mean, Dave's a machinist and can make parts. I'm fortunate enough that 30 minutes from my house, I have one of the best machinists that I've ever met. He fixes the parts for the machines for the other machinists when they break. Whether it be making gears for auto feeds or whatever on their Bridgeports, the guy can make anything. Well, as an example, my kingpins in the front end of my car were wobbling, and I thought, hey, these things got to be addressed. So I looked, hey, look, got bushings. Okay, well, the bushings came from McKinney. This is a Hadman front. They look about the same. I mean, most of those cars, take it apart, there are no bushings in it. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is nice. Brad Hadman no longer is around. He doesn't build cars anymore, so I don't have any A-frames or A-arms. I called up Tom and I said, well, what do I do? You want to machine this down and we put bushings in it? And he's like, yeah, bring it down. I was talking to Ty Baumgartner, and Ty's like, yeah, he goes, I don't know how you're going to grab that thing. Those A-arms, it's just a round tube that's welded on both sides. You can't clamp it. And then once you do, if it's wobbled out, how do you find the center of it to actually punch a hole in it and have it straight, not be 3 or 4 or 5 degrees off?
Yeah.
So that's why I, go down and I talk to Tom. So he's like, yeah, 15 minutes, he's cutting holes. And I'm just amazed. His mind thinks entirely different. So he chucks it up in there, and then he takes the old kingpin and he puts it in the chuck, and then he runs it down in the hole till it's not touching anything. Then he takes that out. Then he puts a laser in there. And then he goes over to laser and he touches one side of it and zeroes the DRO and sees the light dancing on the side of it. Then he goes to the other side. Then he goes to this side and this side. And he puts those into the deal. And then he goes back to zero, and that's dead center from the outside of the wallowed out hole. I didn't think of that. Neither did Ty. And then he punches a hole in the thing, and then I'm like, well, what are we going to put in there? You know, I mean, are you going to put a steel sleeve in it? Or are we going to put a, you know, and he's like, no, we'll go with Enco bronze. So he goes over to the lathe and he takes a piece of round stock, gets the measurements, has a 2,000 fit interference, and he machines down and punches out 4 bushings for me, goes over to a 20-ton press and presses them in. And I'm like, wow. And I don't have a way, so we use a reamer, but, you know, an 11/16 reamer and 11/16 kingpin will have too much interference. So he makes a little tool with a little flapper wheel, and he goes in there and he hones it out until it's just like a perfect fit. Dead center, done. I go back, put them on. Without that, I don't know what I would have done. I mean, can't call anybody and buy them.
So that's what I don't
I was going to ask you guys, like, so, I mean, talking about this, like all the, you know, having somebody like that on to your availability is huge, as far as machinists, welders, and stuff like that goes. But like, do you guys do a lot of your own, like, frame? Like you said, the frame that you have, you purchased from someone, but and like Dave's got, like, I think he said 4 or 5 cars just sitting there behind him. So like, do you guys like build a lot of your own stuff? Or do you have like independent guys? Like in the Poland world, there's a bunch of independent guys that build a lot of the own stuff, and then stuff like that. So is that kind of outside HRA stuff, or with like
Dave's got a jig. He builds chassis. He's a welder. Jig weld.
Yeah.
When I got my car, we had to put a front half on it, so everything from the foot box forward was done. I just took it to Ty Baumgartner, and he just, you know, basically changed his jig a little to fit that car because he doesn't build that car. But yeah, I mean, and then we got it back with a different cage on it. So Dave came up and welded tabs and bushings on for helmet shield. I did the carbon fiber for the helmet shield, and because the old one wasn't wide enough to go over the wider cage. So yeah, we do a lot of it all.
That's awesome, because I would imagine like some of the bigger teams, they just go out and buy it, and it's one, and you know, they just buy it and it's good to go, right? And then where you guys do a lot of your stuff in house.
No, Don Schumacher Racing, they make all their own cars in house. They have their own jig. They build their own stuff. They build their own blocks. They build their own heads.
So, I mean, I'll be 100% honest with you. I have to get out to a race sometime. Listening to these guys the past, like, I don't know, 2 months since racing has started, like, hardcore, I'm like, I gotta go.
So Terry, Adam does a lot of aluminum welding for guys. So he's making oil pans. Today he was working on irrigation pipe for farmers, like anything aluminum, TIG welding, shit like that, or fabricating. He's doing all that. So
very cool.
Yeah. So he's in the fabrication world and gets to see a lot of that random shit that somebody brings in and says, "Hey, can you weld this?" And it's an old worn out livestock trailer or Luma trailer that, like, I had 2 weeks ago, that the tongue broke and the lawnmower's on the trailer as I'm trying to get home to mow the yard. Yeah. So.
Well, when you said, you know, that you know, like Schumacher or you know, the big teams will go out and they'll just buy it. No, they just go out in the shop and they build it. If you've ever been in like
that's fascinating, like that they do that, because that's a lot of the times in like the polling world, that's not how it is. I mean, it's the complete, not the complete, like there are teams out there that have fab shops and that make their own stuff, but it's not many. Yeah, there's a bunch of independent builders that do everything, and stuff like that.
The independent car builders that were out there are gone because the big teams have kind of put them out of business by building their own cars. There's nobody for Baumgarten race cars to build top fuel cars for, because if you're racing under Schumacher, they build their own cars. Clitus build their own cars. Ford builds its own cars. Just run down real quickly. Schumachers make their own rocker stands, cylinder heads, blocks, rods. The only thing they don't make is pistons and wrist pins. Bill Miller still makes just about everybody's wrist pins that are run out there, but they have a machine in their shop that's they stand 4 heads up like this, and they have 4 or 5 tables and all these stations with all these tool changers, and they just chuck up the blocks of aluminum, and then these heads start working through the first phases, and they'll have 60, 70 cylinder heads sitting there.
Oh, cool.
I think for what you're doing, I think the only independent quote unquote shops to get a chassis now, who's left? McKinney, Morgan Lucas Racing, and Precision. Is that it?
Baumgartner, Ty Baumgartner still, he can do anything. He's an artist. Dave Lowe, he can fix your car, your funny car or whatever.
Yeah, I've usually have one on the jig.
What are the chassis?
They can't make cars for, they don't build cars for anybody because, everybody that, since the big teams have gone in-house with all their car building, they pass them down and put them on the used market so cheap that somebody like me would never contract with any independent person to build a car. I can buy an older Schumacher chassis, funny car or dragster, for honestly about the cost of the pipe. I mean, you can pick up a bare Schumacher chassis that was one of Matt Hagen's cars for $7,000.
Wow.
You order up the pipe, you're barely going to get started on it for $7,000.
Yeah.
We got one of our sled puller fans who's a regular watcher of the show, Roger Rui, who's from just north of Omaha. He checks in and wants to know, how many passes do you get on your slicks, and how do you know when they're wore out?
They have indicator holes. Just like, it's just a little hole that tells you, what the usable tread depth is on them. As far as how many runs you get on them, it's like a blower belt. I hardly ever put a brand new one on. I hardly ever put brand new tires on. But when I do buy them, they're gone in 3 runs. When I get some used ones from somebody, I'll go 10 runs. And don't ask me why. I just put new tires on the back of that car in Pomona this year, and by Phoenix, when I ran the 318 mile an hour pass, it blistered them so bad that Goodyear said, no, you can't run them. Take them off. So those tires I got maybe 4 passes out of. And then I have on the car now, since I had to take the new ones off, the new tires off, I have on last year's tires that I bought at the first of the year that probably have 20 passes on them.
Wow.
I was going to say, you guys swapped tires type of thing. And the interesting thing was you had to take those tires over and get them balanced and certified, right?
The rims have to be certified by the manufacturer. The rear tires, a lot of times on funny cars, they'll balance them. Dragsters, we don't really worry about it too much. For a long time, I was getting tires to scrub in for some of the big teams because when COVID hit, the supply chain of tires was gone. They used to have them sitting in a warehouse for 6 months. Well, when production went down to so slow, the tires didn't have any age to them. And after the burnout, you literally see moisture leaching out of them. As they heat up, they would start sweating oils. So who did I do the most for? Some of the Cliticars, Tim Wilkerson, they would just bring me over mounted up tires and have me run them the first time for them to get that cycle that out of them. And I did that a lot last year, but now we, trying to go to this next level, we can't do that anymore. It makes our car too inconsistent, because come Sunday, if we don't have the same tire on there that we qualified with, we don't know how it's gonna react. I mean, the difference in tire height. The big teams go over and buy 6 sets of tires on Thursday from Goodyear. By the time we go over there and want to buy 1 set, all the rollouts that we want are gone. So we end up trying to stretch our tires. We put 25 pounds in them and set them in the sun and watch them grow. No, we'll get a 114 tire to 116 before Sunday.
And you mentioned like the wheel certification, and I don't think people realize you open a Weld catalog, and I think most of those wheels are certified to like 275 miles an hour. You guys have to run special ones to go as fast as you do.
Correct. Yep. A lot of that's that we don't have pilot hub or lug stud. We have drive hubs.
Yes.
And that takes the load off the centers. But yeah, they're checking. They want them. We have to take the wheel apart, actually send it into them in 3 pieces or 4 pieces, and then they just want to check to see that the holes aren't starting to oblong and things like that. And if they do, you buy new barrels or new centers, whatever it's going to take, and a new bolt kit and put them back together.
Roger's got another great question. What's the interval on chassis certs? Is it 1 year, or you have to do it more often?
1 year.
1 year.
Yep, we get 1 year. And then, as an example, this SFI changed for the front half. SFI, the Independent Foundations, NHRA went to them and said they wanted a 20% margin of safety from where they were at. And SFI came up with 065 wall front half car if they were going to use the same diameter pipe. PRO came in, said no. Went to all this independent laboratory testing. They paid all kinds of money to have everything checked out. SFI said doesn't matter. We're standing on our 065 wall. NHRA went ahead and adopted that 23U rule, but they walked it back to be 058 from 049. And I believe Murph McKinney still is pushing 065. He doesn't want to build him 058. Actually, Rob Passy bought a kit from McKinney and went to 065 because that's what the rule is. SFI didn't change it. NHRA adopted something different. Now, when the front half of one of these dragsters ends up in the front row and there's a lawsuit, well, NHRA kind of hung it in themselves because they walked it back. They asked for something, they were given something, and then they aren't holding to it.
That's interesting. I did not realize that they had walked back from that. I mean, it was a big to-do going into Pomona last fall, what it was going to be, and some guys front half their cars for the finals just to get time on them and figure them out. I didn't realize there'd been a change there.
Yeah, they went back to 058 from the 065 that was actually written in the spec, but then they started doing all these other changes to the diagonals, to the cross braces having to be welded in versus being clamped in. So the changes just kept coming. If you could slip tube it or not, if you could, you have to have wedding bands on it. How far can it move? I think they ended up being like 60,000. So I think everybody pretty much said, well, that isn't worth it. Then, all that extra work for that. I guess I would agree with McKinney in the fact that if we still have to put all these crutches, all these X braces and diagonals and cross bracing and lift bars in it, then they didn't build the car solid enough because it never had to have that to begin with. So if you're going to change the rule and you want a stouter car, at least make it so that you don't have to put all these crutches back on it. But yet here we are. Now we do it and we still have to put all the crutches on it, all the X bracing and everything that we never had to have before. That's developed over time. That's been one rule change, domino effect that affects the other and affects the other and affects the other. And basically it all comes down to the car was designed to be a 2,000-pound car. NHRA changed the amount of nitromethane. These guys started putting bigger tanks on them. They started putting alcohol, shoving as much alcohol in them because they couldn't put as much nitro through them. So they brought them to hydraulic, basically. And then when they did that, they needed more fuel. So now we're hanging 2,300 pounds on a car that was designed to be 1,900 pounds, and they're starting to break. Wonder why. And now they're trying to move the chassis up to catch up to what the cars need. And then when they finally, after 2 years of debate and testing, come up with something, then they walk it back. And now we're putting all the crutches back on that looks like, all these little braces and stuff that if they just probably went to the 065 wall, wouldn't have to have any of it anymore. We actually built a car that was strong enough to, and I'm not against the diagonals and stuff like that and the lift bars, but every bar that's up there is one that can come through me, and especially if they're just, because then they allowed aluminum rod ends. So now you got a titanium bar in the middle of a chromoly chassis with an aluminum rod end. And if that car flexes hard enough one direction, you're going to have one stick, 49 inches long, 3/8 in diameter, floating around out there. Never made sense to me, but I just got to go with what everybody else is going with. I actually sold my old car that I had clear back, I think it was when Corey McClenathan had his car break. After they did the hardened back half, my car was 058 wall. Ty Baumgartner and I decided we were going to build an 058 wall car because I don't run enough. And I'm not going to be front halfing it again for a long time. And we did it in 2014. And that car's still being ran today. And it's still passed spec as an 058 wall car that we built in 2014. And Scott Farley's got it.
Yeah, what year chassis was that too? That was
1998.
Yes.
It'll be no consolation to anybody on this show or anybody watching this show, but we all dip our toes into a bunch of different styles of motorsports, and guess what? The tech problems are the same everywhere.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I was getting ready to say that, we hear it in everything of, if it's not one thing, it's another, bitching about the fact that they've got to certify this and got to certify that, but there's so much safety, Terry just said it, there's parts floating around there, and it doesn't matter what motorsports, there's always going to be parts floating around. If something's not right, it's not safe. So, yeah.
Well, back from my collision industry days where I was doing a lot of frame repair, one thing you don't do is back away from the professional that you ask to make the spec, because all you're doing is setting yourself up to lose a lawsuit. Not getting in a lawsuit. Getting in a lawsuit, anybody can sue you for any reason. Losing one is a whole different story. And when you ask for something, you're given it, and then you change it, you have assumed all responsibility at that point. You have nothing to back you up. You're going to be hanging in the wind when or if that happens. I think NHRA would have been wise to stay at the 065, which is the 20% margin that they asked for. That's why I believe wholeheartedly that Murph McKinney is still doing that. He's going to go with that original rule. That's how he's going to build his cars. That's how he's building his front ends.
I mean, it's interesting. So I I do all east of the Mississippi. I do pretty much all the diesel drag races, and near here is the home of the quickest 4-wheel drive diesel pickup truck. His truck right now is in what he calls chassis jail. NHRA revoked his certification because he sits in the center. He's got the funny car cage around him. It's built really like a monster truck, but because there's no spec for sitting in the middle of a vehicle like that, they won't give him a cert again until they figure it out. And it's been round and round and round and round and round. Meanwhile, there's a $200,000 race truck sitting there collecting dust.
Yep. Well, and that's true. And it's, as an example, when Tim White came over and was telling us about this front half rule and that they wanted the diagonals in there, Ty Baumgartner and I said, well, let's do a double wishbone that won't interfere with the flex of the car this way, only this way, side to side. So what we do is where these diagonals go like this in the bays, we do a wishbone and a wishbone where it was slip tubed in the middle so the car could still act like it's supposed to and not bind up when you hit it with the arc. Tim White said, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, why? It's the same principle. The only thing we're doing is we're not locking the car up from being able to arch. He said, because we need all the cars to look the same. So our tech guys don't, if they see something that's out of the ordinary, it's not right. And here's an example too. Believe it or not, they wanted the industry standard changed on the mil tolerance for wall thickness of chrome alloy. Now, I know NHRA is a good sized company, but when you're talking about the metal industry for aircraft, shipbuilding, whatever's out there, aerospace, the mil tolerance has always been about 7 thousandths. So an 058 wall car could actually be 051 and fall within the spec. So they certified my car, then they came back and checked it all again and then certified it again and then put a cable tag on it because somebody figured out that we can still do it with 049. We just got to go test a bunch of 049 until we find stuff that meets the minimum spec of the 058 and we can build our car out of that. And we're still running 049.
I think the idea that everything has to look the same was a backhanded admission that tech guys are not all that bright.
Yeah, they're learning. They're learning. I'm glad they're there. I'm glad there's a lot of things out there that NHRA's rules have done that are awesome, and then there's some that are head scratchers. I think the Leahy kill system, crew chief box, things like that, hand pressure switches, those things, that stuff's just saving people money left and right and shutting cars off before catastrophic things happen. You don't see the day of the Eddie Hill blow up anymore, where you make the highlight reel because you blew a 28 diameter flame when the thing went kaboom. We don't see them anymore. Because they've gotten, then this stuff's picking up on it. They're seeing when you backside a piston, So I think there's a lot of good, but with that, the more rules you put in place, it's like, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help, Not necessarily true, but sometimes it is. It makes me feel better being in the car. I don't have anybody with a crew chief box. I have one on the car, but I won't give it to anybody. I've had people that want to drive my car. They're like, okay, well, if I get out there and something's goofy, shut me off. It's like, no. If you're the driver and something's goofy, you shut it off. That's why you're the driver. I don't want anybody shutting my car off when I'm in it. I mean, these cars, they talk to you when you step on the throttle. They let you know. If you're driving over your head, then that's maybe not where you should be. I mean, I'm not saying that nothing bad can happen to anybody, even the greatest driver out there. I mean, when a car has a catastrophic failure and just breaks in half, like has happened, there's nothing you can do about that. But other than that, somebody, I know they say they can see a hole out so they can save parts by hitting that button. I've never been that good. Either my eyesight's not that good because I can't tell if they've lifted. I can't tell if it's a little tire haze from 850 feet away, and I see a puff of white. I don't know exactly what that is. So those guys are better than me that hold them crew chief boxes. Even when I was helping out Chris King, he had a crew chief box on that. It's like, dude, if you're having a problem, if you got a problem, get out of it. You're going to know, so fast. I mean, Dave can tell you, I drove that funny car one time and that thing let go so quick. I got over, I don't know what happened, but it made a left turn. But
I was going to the donut shop.
Yeah, it did. You'd read both sides of that car, but that's the fastest time I've ever had to react in a car. Dragsters are kind of slow. They're so long that the yaws when, like, if you're a pilot, you push on the rudder and the tail starts moving this way or that way. You can feel that in the center line of your body. If you push yourself back in the seat, the car will tell you whether it's going straight or not 2 seconds after you step on the throttle.
Yeah, there's truth to what you're saying in the sense that, if it's got a hole out, it's going to move you around.
Yep.
If it's not throwing you back in the seat, clearly something is not right.
Yep.
It's already nosed over.
For somebody who's never been on a really good pass, would be the one that would probably need to be shut off because he doesn't know what he is supposed to be feeling. But if you've been on several good 300-mile-an-hour passes that were clean, hey, if that's not what it feels like, then it's not right, and you got to step off of it and always err on the side of caution. I mean, I've lifted before because of a weird vibration. I lifted one time because I had the car made a move on me, and I found out it was because I got to the end of the grandstands and the wind was blowing crossways, and that's what I felt. But you felt it, and all it was just coming into the wind. Where the bleachers ended, it had more wind, and it gave me one of these, and I lifted. But
was that in Las Vegas?
That was actually in Indy when we were. I was running an A fuel car at that time, and actually Lance. Who's the crankshaft guy, Dave? That's no longer with us. Flanagan. He fixed crankshafts for everybody. He was working on the car, and he's actually the one that pointed it out. The guy that owned the car looked at me and said, "Well, why'd you lift?" I said, "Felt funny." And Lance said about 20 minutes later, he was just sitting there and he's like, "Because you got to the end of the bleachers and the wind was blowing." And sure enough, it did it again the next time we went up, but I knew it was okay. I was ready for it, but I don't know. It's getting to the point where I don't know what 330 miles an hour would feel like. 320 is going to be enough to make me, I'm right now, when we make a pass, it's an attention getter, but it seems like it takes so much more to just get that much more out of it that I don't know what it's going to be like. There for a while, I didn't even know what a good pass was because I was getting vibrated all over, and I don't know, if it was my chassis, if it was my Hans device on the cage or whatever, but I'd get out there and I couldn't see, so I'd have to lift. This new car, I can see everything. I mean, I can see everything. I can feel everything. I'm so much more comfortable in this car than I've ever been in any car, and it's the fastest car that I've ever had. So I'm tickled to death where, I'm anxious to go experience, this 21 car top fuel field and see if we can get in.
You talk about being able to see it. I remember Charles telling me, like, when you're behind the line and you see these cars go, like, your vision is blurry. And I remember the first 4 wide, we walked up to the starting line, and I walked back, and Hank goes, "What'd you think?" I said, "Don't clench your teeth; they'll chatter." And it's a whole different feeling. I mean, what 2 cars measure 2.2 on the Richter scale, and then you got 4 of them together. And there's a lot of drivers, and I shouldn't say there's a lot of spectators out there that hate 4 wides. But it kind of seems like there's drivers that really like a 4 wide versus, the normal two cars going down the track together.
Yeah. 4 wide's been good to me. It's, it's because when I'm out there, when it's just me and one other, top 10 car, they're going to tune to go against me on that run. They know where I run. They've got the data. When it's 4 wide, there's another top 10 car they got to worry about. And that's where these hiccups come out, smoking the tires early or something like that. It levels the playing field for me a little bit, because, and it gives me hope that I keep making these little steps, and they keep having to pay a little closer attention to me, that I'm going to start hopefully seeing their mistakes more than, being able to back it down and run against me. I used to pick fields where, oh man, these guys are going, I don't want to go. We might not, I'm probably not going to get in the field. Now I'm hoping here by the end of the year, some of the teams that are marginal are looking at, oh, now Totten's going, so let's just stay home because he's going to run a 370.
Yep. Dave's over there. He's ready.
You bet I'm ready. I tell you, honestly, in all my years of racing and being in this stuff, and I had a lot of Kodak moments with Hoover when I worked with Tom, but honestly, the best memory I will take to my grave was Vegas at the Big End. That was, I was speechless.
He was excited.
I was.
You know what? More excited than me.
I don't know if the nitro made my eyes water or what. That's all I want to say. But that was, I would put that down if I was going to write my career out for my obituary. I'd say the number one thing in racing was that moment. That was, yeah.
Bad part about the 4 wides is you don't know if you won or not until they tell you.
By the way, I'm sorry about the noise. I don't know if you guys can hear. We're standing outside by a highway right now because my Wi-Fi went down inside the shop.
It's not bad.
Okay.
No, I got this whistle going on. It must be my water line. I'm trying to put some water outside, and I hear this whistling going on. I'm starting to drive me nuts. Sounds like a tea kettle behind me. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to Chicago. And if we can get to Norwalk, St. Louis is going to be another one. I think it's going to be a really tough field to get in.
So your plans are Chicago, St. Louis, and Brainerd, and Norwalk.
Yeah, and then we got to get Dave's car out.
Yep, we talked about that. I told him that if you're going to run in Kansas City, let me know. So it's 3 hours and 2 minutes from my house, because I've Googled that already.
The Flying H.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know, Dad. It's time Dave gets back in his car, and I'm gonna be there. I'll be helping, so he can just relax and drive and not have to worry about anything else.
I like that. I am beyond excited. It's just like I was telling him earlier. It's been a long highway to get where I'm at. And Terry, you've
Oh,
you've
yeah.
done it yourself, and it's not easy. A lot of many hours.
Yeah, and not being a business is different from these other guys. I mean, those guys got to go clock in and they got to do their
Right.
whatever it is they do. Sometimes it's hard to get motivated, especially when you're the only one going out to the shop that day. And then there's a lot of stuff that you just don't want to do. I mean,
it's 3 below. You don't really want to go. My shop here, I've got propane, but I couldn't afford to put propane heat, to run it like as much as I'm out here. So I got a big wood burner, and I'm telling you, when you get up Monday morning and you look out and there's snow on the ground, the shop's going to be cold, and you got to go dig up the firewood and get a fire started. That's determination. And older I get, sometimes that determination's not as good as it was.
Yeah.
Maybe because when I was younger, I was just young and dumb, and now I'm just old and slow. That's it, old and slow. Yeah.
Well, you're preaching to the choir around here, because I'm in Michigan and Adam lives in Buffalo, New York, where he gets more snow than anywhere on earth.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the coldest I've ever been was we went to Terry's shop, and I told Terry, I went outside and I come in. I said, "Man, my ears are really hurting." He goes, "What do you mean hurting?" I said, "I don't know. They feel like they're like ready to fall off." He said, "Dude, you're in the first form of frostbite." Well, I've never been in weather like that. Kansas, we have some 30-degree weather. We dipped down for a couple of days. It was cold, but man, them Nebraskans, dude, I tell you, they're wow.
The last 2 years, you've come up on the coldest, snowiest weekend of the year. Both times.
Yeah.
Even the year before. I think the year before you came up when Scott Farley was, and he didn't even have socks on.
Yeah, it was my, yeah, I remember that. A buddy of mine owns a salvage yard here, and as a kid, I was always going to the salvage yard and trying to get parts and make things. And old Frank Herford, Frank would always say, matter of fact, Frank Herford, that's Keith Goolsby's father-in-law. And old Frank would say, "Dave, I got to ask you, you either come out in the hottest day of summer and spend all day here, or the coldest day." And I don't know. And that was facts. I was always out there in the coldest or the hottest day. But I guess when you're looking for car parts, it don't matter.
Yeah.
We're gonna take Dave's car out to that Flying H after we get back from Chicago, probably.
Yes.
That's what he
Matter
was
of
saying.
fact, my car, I was telling them my car is done. It's on the ground. As soon as Tanner, my nephew, gets his car out, his dirt car out of the shop, where we can load the car, we're going to load it. It's ready to be loaded.
nice.
So, and there again, the first time out, I'm not going to expect the world just to be on fire either. It's like anything. It's going to take many, many outings to get the car where it even goes maybe to A to B good. I don't know. Or we might hit it lucky and go out there and it runs great. I don't know. Just have to wait and see.
So do you still have your license then?
No. I tell you what, I still got my top alcohol license. I haven't not crossed over yet. And the only reason I haven't crossed over yet is it's kind of like I have my chassis certified on my front motor car and my rear motor car, but I didn't put a fuel tag on it yet because it's every year and it's expensive, real expensive.
Now, what's a Sportsman, like 3 years?
Yes. Yeah, 3 years. And I talked to the guy and to get, from what I understand, to get and Terry will be able to correct me on this, to get my car certified, I think I got to do it at an NHRA event. I don't think our chassis inspectors, anyway, the guy that came to my shop said he couldn't do it. He could put a top alcohol and on down, but not a fuel tag.
Yeah, the NHRA has, I think, 2 or 3 people that can certify a fuel card.
Right.
But there is one down in your neck of the woods too. I believe Josh lives in Kansas City.
Yes, he does.
So he can do it. He's the one that did the clinics for Baumgartner.
Where was he from? He was close to Texas. Yeah, somewhere. He was up there like in Denton area. And he come down here to do it. But
last year I got or the last couple of years, licensing people and renting out the car, you know, got it out there more to get data on more runs, you know, but anymore, this new car, I'm too scared to do it. I like it so much. I don't want anybody to have the opportunity to scrape the wall or hurt it, I guess. So I'm kind of glad that I had some sponsors step up, but yet, you know, how many more races I'm going to be able to do is going to be dependent on, you know, a lot on where we go from here. You know, I hope that they're happy with what, you know, the exposure we got. I think NHRA did an awesome job for a small team, you know, especially at the last one at Vegas. I mean, they talked about us a lot. And then they did that YouTube video of fast accelerating vehicles, and they used my run in Vegas as that. And I thought that was really cool.
That was bad to the bone. That was cool.
That's stuff you see, you know, only the Antron Browns or the Doug Clittas get that kind of a deal. But NHRA picked ours, and it came out really good.
I got to give the camera crew guy credit on that one too. I said, man, I tell you, he waits the last minute. He filmed everything.
Oh yeah, when he was up by the cockpit. Yeah. So, but we're still, you know, I'll still keep looking for more. You know, every little bit helps as far as sponsor goes, even if it's just diesel fuel to get to the track.
Do you work with anybody on that, or is it you personally that's, you know, picking up the phone and trying to make those connections?
I have never had anybody offer that does it. I mean, my sponsors have come about as friendships, or, you know, met them, you know, business wise, and then they find out what I do, and then, you know, what can we do to help, kind of a deal. As far as having, you know, a real marketing, I don't have anybody. No.
Tough work. You've done it the honest way, the old fashioned way.
Yeah, it's all been just, you know, talking and just getting to know people, and somebody wants to help out. That's kind of how Dave Nelson came about. Chip Lofton helped out for a while when I was helping out, like Joey Haas and then Mike Booker. So we licensed Joey Haas, we licensed Mike Booker. We've leased the car to have it run by Joey, have it run by Mike Booker, had it run by Scott Farley. You know, I keep picking on Jackie Fricky because I think she's a heck of a driver. And she gets the hotel rooms, you know, through Accelerated Travel, I think is her company. So that could help out with, like Dave said, the cost to get there and to pay the crew and the airline is as much as running the car is, for me anyway. I mean, for the big teams, it's probably way worse when you got to travel with, you know, 14 people. I don't know how much they spend by the time they hit the gate, and they haven't even put fuel in the car yet.
Yeah.
Not everybody's a Coletta who owns their own fleet of jets.
Yeah. Well, and I still don't get, you know, what's going on with NHRA as far as purse money and things like that. I mean, you can go play in a cornhole tournament and win $500,000, but you can't even go drag racing. And with cornhole, all you got to do is have one of them fancy shirts and a couple of them bags, and I think you're good to go.
Hey, I think I'm going cornholing, man.
It's not as fast a pace. You won't like it.
You guys remember I said I can't hit the side of a barn, so I'd be screwed there too. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, because the money to go racing is clearly out there. When you see these big dollar bracket races and these huge dollar door slammer drag races, and dirt car guys are getting big money to show up at races, and it doesn't translate to the very top for NHRA. I don't know why.
I don't know. Maybe they are just so top heavy or what. You know, IHRA tried to do a booked-in field before they finally gave up on fuel cars. You know, when Evan Knowles had his issues and pulled out, the IHRA tried to do, you know, an 8-car field. It didn't last. Then there was that Pro Nitro tried to do the same thing. I think they did like 2 or 3 events, and they wanted performance clauses, and then it was done. They were gone. And people have talked about this PRO. Well, I get it. Big money, big sponsors. The winner gets a lot of money, but I don't see where that money's coming from. And at some point, somebody's going to get tired of just, forking out money like that. I see Skag, on all that stuff and sponsoring all that stuff. And, they got nice lawnmowers and stuff like that, but I don't see that being a long-term answer to drag racing community.
Definitely not.
The numbers to me don't add up, but I'm not an accountant. The other thing is, you see these guys, they come and they go. Evan Knowles came, he went. There was a couple other ones in there that came and they went. And some guys will come in and they'll put a bunch of money into it. Even NASCAR has had these solid sponsors for teams for years and years and years. All the way back to like M&Ms. How many M&Ms do you have to sell to run NASCAR? That's a lot of M&Ms.
That's a lot of M&Ms.
So I don't know how they do it. I don't know what NHRA is doing wrong, but there's something that's got to be fixed. I know it can be because there's still the crowds are still there. The tickets aren't cheap. And then you got at the beginning of the year, which is, people were talking about that pro taken away, from the NHRA. I don't see that's even possible because at the beginning of the year, all these sportsman racers, all these junior dragsters, all these other members all pay their dues. And then you got to pay for your licensing and your license and all this stuff. At the beginning of the year, NHRA, I don't know how big the pile of cash is that comes in from all that stuff, but they are the largest participating motorsport in the world, bigger than NASCAR, because NASCAR doesn't have that many drivers. There's not a bunch of sportsman NASCAR drivers. So what they do with all that, I don't understand. And we still are seeing tracks closing. Topeka gone, Denver gone. Doesn't make any sense.
The argument that the PRO shootout was going to detract from the start of the season, all you had to do was see that drone photo at Gainesville where they're parking cars in the trees to know that was wrong.
Yeah. Well, they said there was a mile or a line like 4 miles long, but that track's only, like 2 lanes going in and out. So I could see that, but
yeah,
I don't know. I wish that NHRA could do something more to keep the participation up, but they won't limit it because Top Fuel and Funny Car has always been like an unlimited deal. They've never capped it. They've never gone to restrictor plates like NASCAR. They've never, done those things. I think the only reason they've ever even tried to slow down the cars is because they don't have a tire technology to keep up with them because it just shreds them, and that's what took out Darrell Russell. We've seen, even Doug Clitt had tire failure this year that could have been catastrophic, but he kept it, it stayed flat, which, amazingly, it happened that nobody got hurt on that deal either. But those are the only limits I've ever seen NHRA. And then backing them down to 1,000 foot because they say because some of the track's finish lines after the finish line wasn't long enough for shutdown, but I don't know. I don't know if it was that or if that was their way of slowing them down. They could level the playing field. They've done it in nostalgia cars by limiting the fuel pump and the blower. You limit the fuel and the blower, you've limited the car.
Yep.
But in NHRA, these blowers that we got, I couldn't believe the difference in going from the blower I had to the blower I got now, what kind of boost the thing makes. It's unbelievable. I always thought, I got 40 pounds going through the traps. These things are putting out like 60 pounds at less than 40% overdrive.
That's crazy.
And the technology just keeps getting better and better and better. And all these diverter plates and all these other things that they're putting in there and now we got individual ignition timing, you know. I don't even want to try to figure that out. I'll just stay with what I got. One magneto is enough, but have one magneto that's controllable 8 different times and then add that to another magneto that's controlled 8 different times, I'm going to have a mess. I know that.
Hank opened up the cover and showed me that, and I was like, yeah, that's a lot of notes that need to be taken and multiple passes to figure all that shit out.
Yeah. Well, and when you got the money, you can buy the secret sauce. You can buy the recipe. You just have to have the money to do it.
Yeah.
You know, you come out with a $2.5 million budget or something like that for your first 10 races. You hire the crew chief that's been with the big teams, and they'll get you in the 370s. The one thing that I have that they don't is that or I shouldn't say that they don't, but I personally know every aspect of the car, every part of it, whether it be clutch, fuel management, timing, supercharger, short blocks, whatever it is. I've done it all. And that knowledge really can't be taken away. So if I go out and blow up my car, whether it be just from parts failure or whatever, I can put it back together. I don't have to rely on anyone else. I don't have to have a crew chief that I pay that does that for me. You know, that's kind of the advantage I have. I don't know necessarily that there's anybody out there right now. There used to be. Don Sasenko was one of them. There used to be guys that were like that. Brent Fanning was one of them. That would tune, build, you know, their own car. But right now,
Beckman's probably the last one.
Jack was involved with it a lot. But it seems like anymore it's crew chiefs, car chiefs, and drivers. There's not a lot of, and those are 3 separate people. You don't see that being, you know,
Right.
like one person anymore.
Right. I see our driver. He gets out of the car. He jumps and digs into the clutch.
Yeah.
You know, you don't go hide in the trailer.
Yep.
I did sign more autographs in Vegas than I think I ever have.
Yeah. Hey, he was a big star.
It makes a difference. I think. I mean, I wish I have some goofy things that I do on my car anyway. I mean, the way I put my manifold on, the way I torque my heads, you know. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's superstitious, but some guys will look at me like, this guy's a quack, man. Why do you have to do it that way? Well,
you'll never see me go on the starting line without my green hat.
There's logic to the way you torque a head on. I mean, I've pushed one head gasket in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because of the way I torque my cylinder heads. And I show everybody that comes. And people like Hank, who's a mechanic, I can explain it to him one time, give them the reason one time, and they'll do it every time because they understand it.
Yep.
Somebody who is not a mechanic, that's just going to break nuts loose and put them back together, will question that, and they'll be like, once I turn my back, we'll be like, that guy's goofy. It don't matter which torque sequence I use it. It's all going to be at the same foot-pounds when I'm done anyway, and that's just not true.
It doesn't quite work that way.
Nope, it doesn't. And so far, knock on wood, it has worked for us. And I know Dave's learned a lot, and I know when he goes and works on his car, he goes right back to probably doing more of stuff the way I do it than
we changed our whole
anyone
head
else.
program. We did. We changed our whole head program. That I've been doing the same program on heads forever until Terry. And it made such sense to me. I told the guys, I said, we'll never torque our heads like we used to. We do it now like you do it. It works.
Terry,
what's really neat about Terry is you can ask Terry, I don't care. You can get completely off the subject and you can talk space, stars, moon. And I swear to God, the guy's got the answer. He's my walking encyclopedia. He's better than the internet. I never Google no more. I just call Terry. Yeah. I call Google Totten. Google Totten, can you tell me? And it works. I know, really. The guys, you're spot on, Terry. You really are on everything. You're really you take an interest in things and you learn it and you like to explain and pass your knowledge on. That's really cool.
Yeah, I do. I wish there was more people coming around that, younger people that were coming around that
they're not.
That want to learn anything about motorsports. But it's not. I mean, trade schools and things like that, they're gone. It's crazy. Man, if I was a kid today, I'd be over there, snooping around and trying to get as much information and stuff as I can. But we don't see it. Every once in a while, we'll have one little kid come up that'll make you feel like there's hope.
A buddy of mine closed his welding shop down. And I asked him, and that's where I was probably, God, I don't know. I shouldn't even been riding my bicycle that far away from home, but I was probably second grade, first grade. And that was every during the summer, every day I'd go to the welding shop. And I asked him one time, I said, why did you teach me how to weld? And he looked at me and laughed. He said, well, now you're an adult. I can tell you, get you out of my hair. That's not exactly what he said, but we'll leave it at that. But yeah, get you out of my hair. He stuck me in the corner, and he's the one that taught me how to weld.
You know what that reminded me of? The Leroy Van Dyke song, "The Auctioneer." He snuck around the auction block, like that's. Except for "You're the Welder," like that's what that reminded me of.
Yeah.
I mean, Leroy Van Dyke's a little bit older than you are, but still, that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, it's kind of a real bummer, when he shut down, and he shut down for health reasons. He started. Honestly, he got dementia, and I'd still go up there and talk. And midway in the conversations, he said, "Damn, Dave, what was I talking about?" And I'd look and I said, "Well, Larry, I don't remember either." I don't know if I was just doing that to make him feel better, or I really didn't remember. But
Charles,
trade schools, the high school shop classes, they're just non-existent anymore. I don't.
Do we even have an automotive shop anymore?
Not in the high school.
Yeah.
Because
they wanted me to teach that out there.
Yeah. I graduated from Pitt State here, our local college, back in 2001, and I've been a mechanic ever since for Ford, and we cannot find anybody anymore. Yeah. The numbers, it used to be you had to be on the list for years to get in. Now there is no list. It's all gone. Nobody wants to do it anymore.
Yeah. I think manufacturing, engineered obsolescence is huge. I mean, everybody sells their brake lathes now because they only make the rotors good for one shot,
Hey, by the way,
engineering that you got to buy new ones. Everything's thrown away and replaced. There's nothing.
If we disappear, if we disappear, it's because I only got 5% of battery left on my phone. So if I all of a sudden disappear, that's what happened. But you're right. Anymore, it seems like if something's broke, they just want to start replacing parts. They don't want to fix it. They just start replacing until they find the problem.
Yep. And it's a lot of electronic stuff. There's not a lot of guys that know how to wrench anymore. It's we got to plug the computer in and figure out what's wrong with it, and that's.
Or go to the parts store. They can't even look it up.
It's not. It's a lot of it's not their fault.
Or 4-wheel drive.
Yeah, the O'Reillys. Yeah, but a lot of it's not their fault. It's what the industry's done.
Right.
I mean, the industry's gone electronic.
Right.
It's not. They don't. They have to teach that.
It's engineered obsolescence. They engineer into it a lifespan, and they know it.
Yep.
I'm into street rods, and I got a small block in one of my street rods, and I go up and I said I need an alternator for a 350 Chevrolet, about a 1970. What's it in? I said, doesn't matter. Oh yeah, what's it in? I said, it's in a 1930 Model A Ford. And this guy actually typed that in. He says, I can't find it. It's like, God darn. I just finally said this. How about a Chevelle?
I've always said if we went back to like standardized parts that are consistent across, because, John Deere, for example, they have every 10 horsepower increment tractor, and they all take different oil filters. They all take different, whatever it is. I mean, you pick your brand, pick your model of anything combustion engine, and they all have different parts.
Yeah.
So if we went back to like the 40/20 era of a John Deere tractor, that oil filter uses on like 10 different tractors, 10 different models, like it was more of a standardized parts. The manufacturers would be a lot happier because they don't have to retool for everything. The dealerships are gonna be happier because they don't have to stock as many parts. The customers are gonna be happy because we'll have it in 2 days, or you can go to this other dealership to get something. Like
I got a car that don't even have a dipstick in it.
Yeah,
A new car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they don't want you touching it.
Yep, no dipstick.
Yeah.
He didn't want to tell you it was a
Oh, wait,
Tesla,
hey, Brian just said he want to watch technology. Just watch. He's plugging my phone cord in the back of his pickup truck some way, and he's going to plug the phone in.
I was waiting for him to say something about the dipstick being in the driver's seat.
It's just, hold on. There you go. Yeah, exactly.
I thought he was going to say he's driving a Tesla, and there's no dipstick in the Tesla.
Dave doesn't like them either because they don't have grills. He thinks an electric car should have a grill anyway.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say something about the front truck, the trunk.
Oh, they got a front trunk?
Some of them do, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Yeah, you open it up and it's kind of odd. It's just like you open up the back of the truck and you got to look around to make sure where you're at, because I mean you open it up and there's an empty compartment that's carpet and there's no engine. So
yeah,
Charles, I did throw the YouTube short that the NHRA did of their pass in Vegas.
Okay.
In the chat.
Hold please.
Did we lose Dave?
Yeah, he popped off. He'll probably come back.
He'll be back.
Once he gets past 5%, he'll join again.
Got to charge up the Ford Lightning truck or whatever.
Yeah.
I wish we could find more people that wanted to go racing and learn about it. I like teaching people about it. I like talking about it.
I tell you what, if I ever make it out there, I'm definitely coming to talk to you, because this has been, for me, this has been great. I mean, it just gives me another reason to want to go walk around there and see stuff. They don't have much like that around here in New York at all. I think the closest track to us is Norwalk.
Yeah.
Can the sound, you get the sound on that, Charles?
It's on, but same. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we've had that conversation.
Adam, we're going to need you to make the noises for this.
Yeah, I'd embarrass myself.
Adam, if it works out this fall, maybe you and I'll go to Maple Grove.
That'd be badass. Where's that?
Down like an hour out of Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a long drive for me. I know that.
Yeah, I went there for unfortunate reasons, but I wound up out there at a PDRI race, and kind of there's no good way in or out of there, but it's a cool track.
Well, I was telling them guys, I've never even been to a nitro, like a top race. Like I've seen nitro like hill climb bikes when that was amazing. I can't even imagine that. 4 wide, like he said, he's like, don't clench your teeth because they'll.
Wow.
Yeah, I've never been to, like, we have an 8th mile track up here, but they don't run, I think, funny cars, but they weren't even, I don't think they were top alcohol or
it's like nothing you ever stood by or felt before when they go. Sometimes I hear them running. I'm like, man, what idiot would ever get in something like that? It's like, oh shoot, I'm up next.
And then you do, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's fun. I mean, the first pass, you know, being a camera guy, the first pass you're holding a camera and you're, you know, on tractor pulling at them, we've got that buildup that just goes and goes and goes, and you kind of like you're anticipating it. When they take off, you're sitting there, all of a sudden you jump, and you're like, holy shit, that just happened. You know, like, and you're like 7 frames behind them because like, okay, I got to be quicker and try not to like jump. you know.
You get desensitized pretty quick. I started playing games with him, trying to time the light and catch the tires getting smashed.
Yep, exactly. And that's, you know, at Vegas. So that was my first time NHRA event type of thing, and I said, you know, I was there on Friday and Saturday. The only pass they made was Friday because they were in the show, and so they didn't make any passes on Saturday. So Friday, I said, so where are we at for running a pass? And I think it was Hank that pulled it up on his phone and says, well, we're in the first batch of cars. I was like, I was really hoping you weren't going to say that. Of all the things, like at least give me like 1 or 2 passes of to practice with. So the worst problem is I got in the grandstands and I'm on the big grandstand side on the west side of the track, and I'm like, yeah, this will be a nice place to shoot. And all of a sudden I realized this is not a nice place to shoot because lane 3 is on the other side. Oh, so then I had to hike it all the way down to the other end of the track, underneath the track, up the other side, back down to the starting line again. And I shot 4 passes of funny cars and then Terry. Okay. And that was the very first pass of a top field dragster I'd ever got to shoot. And I was just praying to God that I got something usable.
Yeah. It's so cool.
So, and like I said, it scared the shit out of me the first time. It was also really cool to see I don't know how many different types of jets they were flying over from the Air Force Base there. They had so many jets flying over that, like, Jesus Christ, there's a car coming up behind me, and you realize, no, it's a jet, low-flying jet coming up behind you.
Yeah. They're constantly going out there. 2 years ago, they had an accident out there, and that was the quietest weekend I've ever spent in Las Vegas by Nellis Air Force Base, because they shut down when somebody was coming in on an approach or something, and he died, but he was too low to eject, I think, and that was the quietest year in the Vegas race. It happened, I think, on a Friday, or might have been early Saturday. But they are going constantly out there. I couldn't have. Man, watching them do what they do. It's crazy because you see them go out, in pairs of 2, and then they're coming back in formation. And one will drop off, and then one will come in and land, and then they'll pick up another one, and they keep coming around in 3s. It's like the same pattern all the time. They're never off.
And they're different aircrafts too. It's not you're not seeing the same aircraft go by, and that was a whole nother mix. I mean, yeah, I knew Nels Air Force Base was there, but I never thought about them being active during the race. Being a drone pilot, my second thought is, how the hell are they flying a drone at an NHR race this close to Nels Air Force Base? But that's a whole nother can of worms we won't go down today. But
wonder if they can hear us when we take off.
That would be an interesting thought.
They probably could.
Yeah. They're probably trying to time their routes accordingly to where they can, do a wing wave and watch the finish line. I think Gary Densham
went up in one as a civilian ride along, and the deal was the pilot got to get in his car and do a burnout. And I remember reading the story about it, because they did what they would call their carrier final turn. It's a real aggressive, long 6G turn. And they asked that pilot, look back, and somebody'd radio him and says, the back seat's still dry. And they checked out, said, yep. And then they sat down, and then they put the pilot in the drags or in the funny car to do a burnout. And he did the burnout and shut the car off. And he said, no way. No way. He wouldn't step on it. But I think it's entirely different. I couldn't imagine flying in the kind of, just not being stuck to the ground, too many other things going on there. It's like roller coasters. I can do anything with roller coasters, but I can't do anything that goes round and round. The hard turns and the going straight lines fine for me, but if I was in NASCAR, I'd get dizzy. I don't tolerate going round and round. It's weird. I can't ride rides that do that, but I can ride anything that, detonators that go straight up or any kind of roller coaster that goes up and down. But if it goes round and round, not for me.
Yeah, I don't do roller coasters at all.
Neither do I. I'm a bad passenger.
Yeah. I don't know. The first plane I rode in was 7 years ago, and it was a trip to Vegas for a work conference. And the second one I did, I'm terrified of heights. I actually went skydiving, and you get me on a ladder to get on the house roof, won't do it. And I went skydiving, and it was bad. And the third flight I got on was commercial airline. I really wanted to turn to the lady next to me and say, "Man, I hope this goes better than the last ride," and wait for her to ask like what happened in the last ride. And like, well, I went up with the plane, but didn't come down with the plane. But I figured that was the goodest way to meet TSA, so I did not do that one. But yeah, no,
I come from a family of a bunch of pilots. My dad was a pilot. My brother was a pilot. My brother-in-law was a pilot. My uncle was a pilot. And I went skydiving, and they couldn't understand that at all. Why you jump out of a perfectly good airplane.
My thoughts exactly.
I will say like that, and again, I'm terrified of heights. We went in Winterset, Iowa. Normal drop zone in Iowa is 9,500 feet, and we went to almost 15,000 because they had the big plane out of Chicago. We were like the 20th plane right up that day, but it took 20 minutes to get up to altitude and circling, and it was hot in the ground. I mean, we're in shorts, we're sweating our asses off, and it's like negative 20 degrees when you get up there. I mean, your teeth are chattering, you're cold. Like it changes by the time you get up that. I mean, you're 3 miles up there, and there's a point when you scoot to the edge of the plane and your feet are dangling out the outside and you're hanging onto the harness like this that you realize if you don't like this ride, there's no way to get off it at any point. Like you go, you're gone. And we did a flip coming out and the free fall, like that was amazing. I loved all of that. And like you have such an adrenaline rush, and I'm sure it's nothing like what you're doing, Terry. But for me, because I've never driven a top fuel car, it was a pretty big adrenaline rush. But I was okay until me and the parachute, when they pulled the parachute and we're level with the ground and we're just spinning to get to the ground. I'm like, nope, there's black circles creeping in. We can't be doing that anymore. So we just kind of like hung there and just floated. And the buddy and his wife, that was for his 30th birthday. And he says, we're either going to die at 29 or we're going to live to 30. And that's how we went. But him and his wife went out after me because they circled through the air and they were on the ground unbuckled before I made it to the ground. So
yeah, when you do that, you fall, you come down a lot faster. I mean, the first time I ever tandem jumped, they said, jump out, throw your hands up, arch your back, look up to get in a flat, stable position. Well, we went out and I thought we were going over, but we just almost got, inverted. And so I'm like this and I'm staring over my head, waiting for the ground to come back, and it's not coming back and it's not coming back. And I'm like, something's weird here. Finally, I had a guy grab my hands, shook them. And it was another guy that jumped with us, and he's got this little short cigar hanging out of his mouth, and he's looking right at my face, shaking it. And I finally put my head down, and then I enjoyed it. But other than that, I would have stayed like this until I hit the ground.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, and see, I was the only one in our group that paid for somebody else to take pictures, because I said, I want evidence that I actually did this, Yeah, I was like $100 extra, but it's like, I want evidence.
If it had gone badly, there would have been evidence. You would have been in the papers, bud.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But it was interesting to me that I never even thought about how they're taking pictures. They've got the camera mounted on the helmet. They have a trigger that goes in like a microphone.
Oh, yeah.
And they just bite it. And that's what clicks the pictures. I don't know how they autofocus or any of that shit, but they just bite it. And that's
neat.
So, but there's a video and pictures from it, and it was like I said, I wanted evidence, but I will say, if you have sinus infection, congestion, do not skydive
No.
Because it feels like you have an ice pick shoved in your ear for the next like 3 to 5 days, and it is miserable.
You just flying with a sinus infection.
Yeah.
It'll get you. It'll ruin it for you. Flying with a hangover will do the same thing.
Yep.
Well, final thoughts from everybody, because this is 2 hours Terry's never getting back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I put the hose in my pool trying to fill it up. It's probably down in the neighbor's yard now.
And you were worried that we were going to be boring. It would, you wouldn't have enough to talk about for 2 hours.
Well, my final thought is that, to people that are out there that want to get involved in this, reach out to the small teams. I would love to. I was talking to Don. I'd called Don Sasenka after I went 318 because he was kind of my mentor, and his son was going to be, his legacy when it came to drag racing, as we were licensing him, but he passed away. And Don said, you're carrying on for me. He says, I really appreciate it. There's not a lot of people out there that are keeping the sport alive. I mean, every once in a while, but it's dividing. It's not the mechanic, owner, driver. It's the fly-in driver or the crew guy. You know what I'm saying? That's like, I would love to find somebody that wanted to buy my car at some point when I'm done, and me teach them to do what I'm doing if they really enjoy it. And there's a way that you can do it as long as you just keep your wits about you and don't let, honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with ego. You can't let your ego run your race program or you'll be done in a year. You'll be broke, because I want to go out there and run every single session that I can, but I don't have the budget for it, and I know that, so I'm not going to. That way I can keep doing it and going to the next race and going to the next race, and it can be done. Honestly, I think I'm probably the only one out there that's doing it now. I always thought Don Sasenka was the only one that was doing it back in his day, but there was a couple others. We're talking about a guy that goes all the way back to match racing John Force when John Force was not who John Force is now,
Yeah.
But John was a good businessman and got the sponsors and pushed it harder. The other one had a family that was more demanding, and he also was a professional musician, which took a lot of his time, so spending time on the road, drag racing or music. But I mean, hopefully, there'll be more people that want to do it. But I love to teach and talk about how these things work, because it's like I still am like awed at what we ask these things to do, and they deliver on it. It's like, to me, it's still amazing every time we put one together. My wife thinks it's absolutely ridiculous that you're going to spend all day, all week long working on this, and then it goes, and that's it.
Yep.
But
for those of us who get it, we wouldn't have it any other way.
yeah. So that's what I hope. And I hope Chicago, we go out and we do it. I hope we can lay down a number and get in the field. That would be amazing to be, anywhere near the fastest field in history. And it's gonna happen. It's gonna be faster than the last time at some point. And I always thought there's no way I'd ever have a car that could go 320 miles an hour, and through determination and just staying focused and a little bit of help, we're getting there. So I'm pretty happy about it.
Well, I definitely have the itch. Thank you.
And we're certainly wishing you all the best with it and hoping you have a good, successful, safe weekend there.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
If we do end up with the fastest top fuel field in history, we'll have to talk about that, because I'd be surprised if if it, 320, 325 miles an hour, that's, I don't know. I can't wait.
Hey, you get that lap, you are welcome back on this show to tell us what it felt like.
Oh yeah.
Well, we're gonna give it a shot. But like I said, I talking with Dom Lagana and even Dave Nelson and people that have helped me out, it's not going to do anything different. I mean, we're not going to just go try to wing it, thinking if we do this and do that and push everything harder, we're gonna get in. We're gonna still continue to creep up on it. But this last 2 weeks of being off, I've spent a lot of time working on my clutch, and there's been a couple times over this last year as I've been putting this car together, this little light comes on and says, "Hey, I think we found something." And once again, when I thought we had it all figured out, 2 weeks ago, I think I found more in there, and it's just from I've been doing it so long, but yet I just learned something last week. One about staging, and then about clutch plate load. My clutch wasn't perfectly flat. I didn't have the plate load. I was making up for it by putting primary weight on the clutch, and primary weight on the clutch brings your RPM down at the step. So at some point you go over center, and the more weight you put on it, the less, you think you're going to make more clutch, but your RPM actually makes more centrifugal force. Long story short, I think we found a way to grab the motor harder, but do it without primary weight, which means I'm going to have a lot more free horsepower. And I think it's going to be the first one out of the box. First pass on at Chicago, first qualifying session is probably going to be my best run of the weekend, because I've spent so much time on this clutch now that it's better than it's ever been. But yet I've had Tom, the machinist I was talking about, we made a adjustable gauge block. It's 2 inches in diameter that I can set and check it. And this is the first time I think I've had a truly flat clutch in all the discs, all the floaters, the pressure plate, the flywheel, within just a couple thousandths of an inch of each other. And that plate load is going to, in effect, do the same thing that the primary weight would do, but I don't have to put the primary weight on there to do it, which means I'm going to get my RPM that's going to make that clutch, and I'm going to be able to grab it, but I'm going to be grabbing it with more horsepower than I've ever had. So as long as I can apply it correctly, I think there's a 325 mile an hour pass coming up for me, which may get it done.
Well, we'll be rooting for you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, gentlemen.
I learned a lot today.
All right, Terry, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Oh yeah, you bet. You bet. Like I said, I hope we talk about the fastest NHRA top fuel field in history.
That would be
in a couple weeks or a month.
Absolutely. All
All right, gentlemen.
Thanks, Terry. Have a good night.
You bet. You too.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Cody, for lining that up. Appreciate that very, very much. I didn't realize we were getting 2 nitro drivers out of the deal.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is I didn't know for sure if he was going to be able to join. Hank was supposed to join. They're actually driving to a race right now, so he's like, if they can, we'll jump on. Hank's the old John Deere mechanic type of thing. Like, so that
we'll
was
catch up with him at some point in the future. It's not like we're not, it's not like this is the last sidetracked ever.
Oh no. It just, you walk in the pits and you're not like, you don't really know what you're going to expect type of thing. And then you start hearing more and they're like, well, David's got, 4 cars. Like, wait, what? What do you, and then he starts listing them off and, front engine, back engine, this and that. And it's like, holy shit. So yeah.
Very neat.
The other holy shit, since we put it on, Lando Norris.
Yeah.
We'll just like real quick on this, but like, holy shit, like the planets align for Lando Norris on the F1 race here in Miami. Like,
yep.
There's no other way about it of the fact that the safety car came at the exact point and he was still out there. He had a shitty start. Oscar Piastri was number 2. He had a fantastic start. Yeah, that was incredible to watch.
Yeah, he had until this past weekend the record for the most starts without a win, or most starts or most podiums without a win. But
I think it's most podiums without a win. Yeah.
He seems like a good. I'm old enough I can say this now. A good kid.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I don't know how to put this, but like McLaren's, like they've been there and they just keep battling, and it's like I've always thought they were faster in the street circuits, and I think I've had this conversation before, but Mercedes doesn't have that. They're battling for second, third place with Mercedes and Ferrari, but the Mercedes doesn't seem. It always seems like you need to downshift in a street circuit, and Miami's not necessarily. I wouldn't say at a super street circuit, but it's kind of like that mid-range, between them. But yeah, Lando had the full package of upgrades, and I would imagine Oscar's going to have that for the next race. But
yeah, I did read that. Yep.
So we'll get Lando on the show. It'll be no big deal, right?
Walk in the park.
Yeah, I'll just call him. It'll be fine.
I did have one other F1 note for you today. Did you guys did you see what they were testing at Fiorano today?
I did. The rain rain splatter. Yeah.
I mean, it's shocking to see, just because we're so used to open wheel cars and an expectation of what they look like. And there's one particular photo where they do show the difference between the two cars running through the wet. I don't know that it really did anything.
So I didn't
that it did, but I don't know.
I didn't see that. I just saw the other shot from the Ferrari of in wet and non-wet. On one of the podcasts I listened to, it was talking about the
and it throws it wider, but not necessarily less of it. I don't know what this is doing.
Is it maybe lower, like throwing it out lower so it's not necessarily like in the air?
Well, lower's not necessarily better, because the driver behind's only sitting 3 inches off the ground himself.
Right. The interesting thing is, like, they were talking about the splatter factor pattern in F1 cars today versus 20 years ago. And I think it was it Japan when they had the rain? Was that
Japan's had several races where it's just been just torrential.
And they were talking about it of 20 years ago, it was the tires didn't quite dissipate things like they do now, and so the pattern of spray was different, and they could drive through that. They
didn't have nearly as much ground effect back then either, and the ground effect will pull the water up too.
Right, but the odd part about that specific race is the slicks were actually doing better than the wet tires at that specific race. Like the announcers were talking about it, how they were terrible. Japan did not inform the FIA that they coated the surface.
Oh, yes.
Yep. So there was that. And then the fact that it wasn't a heavy torrential downpour, so it was like a light mist, so it wasn't getting the full effect of a wet tire aspect.
Was that at Japan or was that at China where they're tracking?
Oh, yeah. China. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know if it's going to make that much difference, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know.
But
anyway, I've been in this chair since 8 a.m. I really want to go to bed. I'm done.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for setting all that up. That was really neat. Because I watch them on TV, when they're on live, but I've never been to an actual event. So pretty good.
We'll get you to one.
I got birthed into it in Vegas and got to meet them guys, and the whole crew was great. And you walk into some of the bigger pits, you're probably not going to get to be able to talk to everybody, and they were truly very welcoming and an awesome set of guys. So
very neat.
Yeah. So
well, cool. We will be back in 2 weeks' time, per usual. With who knows? You just have to wait and see.
There you go.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.
Yep. Too.